Wherever you go, whatever you do, you could get caught in the crossfire. Stop for groceries, you could stop a bullet. Get trapped in a takeover robbery and held hostage. A night out with friends, and a gunman turns you into a human shield. That's if you're lucky. These people went out to eat and carried out a friend, a dead hostage. Pick up a pizza, you're a robbery in progress. A domestic dispute becomes lethal, then explosive. What does it take to protect your kids today? Sometimes a SWAT team. Just showing up for work can get you killed. It can happen to anyone, anywhere, anytime. No innocent bystander is safe, not even the most innocent of all. In Chicago, Christopher Evans has grabbed his 5-month-old daughter after a fight with his wife. Police allege Evans has been drinking and smoking pot. He certainly seems erratic as he menaces his own flesh and blood with a knife. What about a person who takes a child as a hostage? What kind of person is that?
They're one of the most manipulative situations and one of the most difficult for the hostage negotiator. People who do that, they're probably more problematic and disturbed than the most dangerous people we face.
It's late November and the temperature is plunging, but police don't rush Evans despite the obvious danger to the infant. Police are content to let Evans vent his rage. They're hoping he'll cool down and give up, but he gives no sign of surrendering his tiny hostage. But the danger is even greater when the little hostage is 13 stories high. Another Chicago domestic dispute. This time, Andreas Rivera threatens to jump with his 3-year-old son in his arms. Police try to talk him down. They watch in horror as Andreas lets go of his child to light a cigarette, but they don't rush him. What are the golden rules of standoff negotiators?
You know, the first rule in hostage negotiations was time is on our side. Emotions go down, adrenaline goes away. When they exhaust out, they're ours.
Police patience and perseverance pay off. Andreas winds up in handcuffs, the baby in his mother's arms.
Oh, baby. Come on, come on.
When it comes to hostage negotiations, Chicago's finest are among America's best. They know when to play by the book and when to improvise. This man is holding his wife and children at knife point and threatening to kill them. First, they try to talk him out. He refuses with finality. The police try a different tact and plead for the children. Now he seems ready to talk. He asks for a cigarette, but refuses to come to the door to get it. The cops come up with a novel solution. The cigarette seems to calm the man down.
Here he comes now.
Once again, hostage negotiations save lives. Well into the night at this Chicago standoff, it's getting colder, but Evans's rage is growing hotter. Still, the police do nothing but walk and talk. In Venezuela, this gunman took over a store, then took a pregnant woman hostage. He threatened to shoot her if police didn't back off. The police believed him. They brought him down. The woman was freed.
Lieutenant, how do you know when to use force?
That's a commander's decision. Sometimes he has a window when he can save a life by using force. Sometimes you take your shot when you have it.
In Florida, police held their fire for hours, even when Daniel Taylor threatened his 18-year-old girlfriend with butcher knives. But when he tried to blow them up by igniting a gas tank, the police acted swiftly and decisively. But not lethally. They shot Taylor with beanbags and rubber bullets. Criminals don't have that same high regard for human life. Police now have to contend with a whole new category of crime, takeover robberies. It's when the criminal doesn't just go after the cash register, he terrorizes everyone in the place, turning customers into targets of opportunity.
I don't have a wallet. Man. There's money right there.
Nearly 2/3 of all takeover robberies are committed by drug addicts who won't let anyone get in the way of their next fix.
Get your ass away from here. Give me the all like that. All right, this is 8950 Street, just been robbed. Oh my God. I knew someone here right away had been shot.
Bank robberies are down all across America, except for one category, takeover bank robberies. The gunman takes everyone in the bank hostage, usually for just a few frantic minutes, but that's just long enough to die.
Hey! Y'all think I'm a joke, don't you? Okay. Find this corner. You want that on your hand?
That's what happened here in North Carolina when a bank robber broke in and a female hostage tried to break free. But this wasn't a bad guy. She was just an innocent bystander caught in the crossfire. That's why all experts agree, if you're in a takeover robbery, do whatever the perp tells you. Don't be a hero. Nobody told Antonio Castillo. He was in a San Francisco bank when drug addict Buford White burst in with a gun. Antonio jumped him. White shot him in the head at point-blank range, causing permanent brain damage. The shooting touched off a running gun battle through the crowded business district. White was shot to death, but not before he wounded 2 officers. As banks have beefed up security, takeover robbers have turned to other targets. Your local supermarket is an inviting target. It's a cash business, open late. No one will notice a car parked with its motor running, and window banners keep out prying eyes. That was a lethal combination here in Florida. We are a 24-hour-a-day society, so anytime, day or night, you can be dragged into a takeover robbery. At this nightclub, gunmen turned patrons into human shields. 4 shotgun-wielding robbers entered this pizza parlor. Incredibly, 2 were girls, 13 and 16, along with a 14-year-old boy. As they fled, one trigger-happy perp fired randomly into the restaurant. Luckily, no one was injured.
Violence and terror give a measure of control. They make it easier to get in, get what you want, and get out. And I think that a particularly violent or cold-blooded criminal can do that today.
What's the most dangerous place to be in America today? If you're a woman, it's at work. For us, homicide is the leading cause of death in the workplace. If you're a man, it's the second leading cause.
Here in a middle-class Long Island suburb, 2 thugs invaded a gas station. In typical takeover fashion, they didn't even ask for money before pummeling the clerks. Fox Files tracked down the 2 takeover victims who were fortunate to be alive.
Did your cousin tell you what to do if someone came in to rob?
Yes.
What did he tell you?
Yeah, he say if somebody come, you take some money, something, you give money, everything, because you don't touch, don't fighting, don't nothing.
His cousin was so terrified he couldn't even open the register fast enough.
Did you think you were gonna die?
Oh yes, I was afraid, of course, because, you know, they're gonna do everything. They're gonna kill us.
This was a simple takeover robbery. In some takeovers, the perps deliberately take hostages. In Hawaii, John Miranda was protesting what he called racial discrimination when he shot his former boss. Then Miranda took an office full of people hostage. He taped a shotgun to one employee's head and vowed to kill him. The police still played it cool, but when the hostage tried to break free, Miranda fired twice. Miraculously, he missed. Then the cops fired. They didn't. Publicity seekers know the highest profile hostages are the littlest ones. In Miami, Catalino Sang seized a school bus full of special ed kids to dramatize his beef with the IRS. When police felt he was about to harm the children, they opened fire. Sang was killed and several children were cut by flying glass. They'll have to carry physical as well as emotional scars forever. Back at the Chicago standoff, the all-night hostage crisis is getting worse as Evans starts dangerously slashing his daughter's clothes. Police still won't risk a shot, even when onlookers demand action.
Get his ass! Get up, man. You provoke me. Don't provoke me.
Look, I ain't got that thing.
As a new day dawns, their almost superhuman patience pays off with a sweet dividend. Evans suddenly turns the child over to police, and residents who had criticized police inaction all night long changed their tune.
Now, Lieutenant Hare says if you ever find yourself in a hostage situation, there are some basic rules. Number one, don't be a hero. Cooperate with your captor. Number two, blend in with the crowd. Don't try to stand out. And number three, try to personalize the situation. If confronted, let your captor know something about you. John?
Some good advice there, Arthel. Let's hope our viewers never have to use it.
Let's hope not.
And we'll be right back.
Coming up.
I thought, oh my God, what's happened?
Can you imagine the shock when they surfaced?
Shark-infested waters, a missing American couple, a Fox Files exclusive. Next.
To Tom and Eileen Lonergan. Special correspondent Linda Duberly reports on a mystery down under.
Police investigating the disappearance of 2 American divers. I thought, oh my God, what's happened to them?
It's a horrible moment no parent ever imagines.
It's feared the MV Outer Edge left them behind on the reef.
The dive industry in Queensland corners the market on stupidity.
They either died of dehydration or the sharks got them.
Not everyone believes the Lonegans are dead.
If you want to disappear, that would be a very good option.
This is the last place Tom and Eileen Lonergan of Louisiana were seen alive, exploring Australia's Great Barrier Reef.
They were excited. I mean, this was something they had looked forward to for a long time.
Tom, 33, a US Air Force veteran, and Eileen, 28, were on their way home after a 3-year stint as Peace Corps volunteers on Fiji. They'd come to the reef to indulge their passion, scuba diving. January 25th, 1998. Tom and Eileen board this boat, the MV Outer Edge, at Port Douglas with 24 other divers and a crew of 5. The third of 3 scheduled dives takes place on St. Crispin Reef, 25 miles off the coast.
The dive profile was 12 meters deep for 40 minutes.
After 40 minutes, the divers begin to surface. They're checked in by this man, Dive Master Harold Close, and colleague Catherine Traverso. The all-important head count is done by a third crew member, George Perriot. Only 24 of the 26 divers are counted.
Head counts are funny things.
A member of the crew says keeping track of who's on board can be confusing.
You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and people are walking all around. You say, excuse me, we're doing a head count. Can everyone stay still? You go 1, 2, 3, and this person walks over to that person walks back there.
By 3:30 in the afternoon, everyone is checked on board the boat. Everyone except Tom and Eileen.
Last diver that came on the boat saw them looking at a giant clam, but when this guy got on board, they were gone.
This is a likely scenario. As the boat returns to Port Douglas, Tom and Eileen surface to find they've been left behind.
Can you imagine the shock when they surfaced and it's just an empty sea, there's no boat?
Rather than attempt the 25-mile swim to shore, or a 3-mile swim to a nearby pontoon. Experts say Tom and Eileen, experienced divers, probably stayed put to await the boat's return.
As night started to fall, then that's when they would have started to get really worried.
It's inky black out here. It's an indescribably frightening feeling. The Lonergans must have been terrified.
That's when they would have started to panic, because they would have been in a very bad situation, worried about sharks.
The most feared predator on the reef is the tiger shark, and with good reason. They're as long as 18 feet and so deadly, even other sharks stay away.
There's enough of them around that we know that a tiger shark would have appeared, and then night falling, and the shark finally decides to move in and bite. And it would have taken one of the Lonergans, and the bleeding and everything, he or she would have gone quite quickly. And then the other person has to go through the same horror to wait for his or her turn.
As Tom and Eileen wait, the outer edge is back in Port Douglas. There, the divers' shoes are laid out on the dock. 2 pairs of shoes go unclaimed. The crew takes no notice. Later, a driver for this bus company comes to pick up Tom and Eileen to return them to their hostel. He can't find them. He calls a dispatcher, who in turn calls the outer edge offices to say the Lonergans are missing. Again, the boat crew fails to heed the red flag. The next day, Monday, the outer edge returns to the reef with another group of divers. Meanwhile, Tom and Eileen, drifting with the currents, have survived the night, but they are desperate. On a dive slate that washes ashore months later, Tom writes, "To anyone, we've been abandoned. Please help us. Rescue us before we die. Help."
When did you first notice that the Lonergans were missing?
At approximately 10 to 8 on the Tuesday night.
Which is 2 days later.
2 days later.
A full 2 days after the Lonergans are left on the reef, Barry Wayman, the owner of the hostel where they were guests, receives a call from Jack Nairn, skipper of the Outer Edge.
I asked them what day they took them out. They said Sunday. I said, this is Tuesday. I'm calling the police.
As the belated search begins, Tom and Eileen's families in Louisiana wait and worry.
I know what my brother survived on at college as far as food, so I thought if they could just make it somewhere.
By the time they started the search, it was too late. I don't think Eileen would have lasted.
Tonight, the emotional story of a shattered man who left 2 Americans behind on the reef.
Almost immediately, Tom and Eileen's disappearance becomes the biggest story in Australia. And just as quickly, the media sees on 2 theories, fraud and murder-suicide.
A note found in the couple's belongings indicates that they were under personal stress.
Lead portions of Tom and Eileen's personal diaries become fodder for the media. Tom, "I feel as though my life is complete and I'm ready to die." Eileen, "Tom's not suicidal, but he's got a death wish, and I could get caught in that."
The other persistent theory is a fake death, but we know that's unlikely. After all, the Lonergans never tried to touch their savings, use credit cards, collect on any insurance, or contact their families.
Still, some in Australia's diving industry remain unconvinced.
We don't have a body. The industry still feels it still hasn't been solved. The Lonergans could turn up in 2 years' time.
The suicide was total bullshit. There was no suicide. I mean, in all honesty, if you were going to go disappear in Australia, you'd just go for a walk in the bush.
The idea of suicide never entered our minds. It was just too incredible.
Many, including family members, blame the dive industry and attorneys for the crew for pushing these theories.
It was obvious after a while that these stories were being put out on purpose.
When the dive slate was found, the dive industry came out and said, obviously, it's a fake. Without ever having seen it, if I had been any leader in the dive industry, I would have been trying to disassociate myself from the idiots that left them behind.
My brother was a good person. He did a lot of good things, and the fact that, in my opinion, he was murdered, and for these people to jump on a person who is dead that can't even defend themselves was awful.
They had a terrible death. And can you imagine when they're fending off a shark or whatever and they're dying, that someone out there is saying, oh, they faked the death. They're on land, they're having a good time.
As hope for Tom and Eileen's survival fades, authorities continue to search. Only now they're searching for bodies. No trace of the divers is ever found. But in the months following their disappearance, pieces of their dive gear wash ashore. It becomes evidence in a coroner's inquest held in September.
Not about you guys.
Most of the Outer Edge crew declines to testify at the inquest, which centres on the stranding of Tom and Eileen and failure to report the incident in a timely fashion. In October, Jack Nairn, the skipper of the boat, is ordered to stand trial on charges of manslaughter. Nairn is also reluctant to speak to us.
I'm a manslaughter charge, and I've been advised that it's very important that the plan speak to the press. As simple as that.
Harold, hi. Harold Close was the dive master that day. He and the other crew members have not been charged.
Do you think it's fair that only Jack Nairn, though, faces charges?
I think so, Mr. Skipper.
The only crew member to speak at the inquest is American-born Carl Jasanowski.
Anything you do, there are mistakes made. And I apologize. I mean, I sincerely apologize. But somehow they fell through the system.
But from the rest of the crew, no apologies, no remorse.
Didn't see any signs of sorrow or repentance or, man, I'm so sorry this happened.
If the captain of the boat's hand hadn't been pushed, they wouldn't have reported him missing at all.
The whole boat is responsible in the sense that 26 divers went out and 24 divers came back. My feeling that all share that responsibility.
May Christ welcome you into paradise.
A memorial service is held for Tom and Eileen last March on the waters where they likely spent their last moments. For the families, part of the healing process. But for the crew of the Outer Edge, memories of this tragedy may linger for some time to come.
Their nightmare is so much worse than ours. To lose a child is so horrible, but to have caused someone's death, I would not want to trade places with Mr. Nairn.
I try to keep in mind that he is in a better place, and he just made it there a little quicker than us. He's happy, and she's happy, and one day we'll all join them.
And then we'll know the bitter truth.
And the people responsible will have to answer to a higher judge. They'll have to answer to God for what they did.
The manslaughter trial of Captain Jack Nairn is scheduled for later this year. We'll keep you posted.
Coming up, these combat cameramen risk with cameras to bring you to the front lines.
You've got to have a healthy feeling of fear to survive.
Why do these combat cameramen risk being shot on deadline? From hanging 10 to a perfect 10, she's riding the wave to stardom. Meet Malia Jones.
You've seen the pictures coming out of Kosovo, but did you ever wonder who shot them? The brave journalists who go to war armed only with cameras. And as Catherine Herridge reports, they risk getting shot on deadline.